Hello, and welcome to our MicroLearn video series. I'm John Stuffelbeam, and I support the CISA CDET CDM training program. This video discusses how to use the CDM dashboard to gather metrics and fulfill requirements set forth in Binding Operational Directive 2201 and Binding Operational Directive 2301, as well as the Federal Information Security Modernization Act of 2014, or FISMA. Our guest today is Mr. Blair Kopfstein. He has supported various aspects of the CDM dashboard design and development since 2018. He currently serves as one of the CDM dashboard development engineers overseeing the automation of CDM FISMA metrics. Blair, thank you for joining us today. Blair, can you tell us why CDM created the FISMA dashboard and how agencies can leverage it when reporting?
CDM created the FISMA dashboard to give agencies insight into FISMA metrics that can be supported using CDM data. For those metrics that are CDM automated, agencies can follow the same steps taken by federal analysts to replicate the same parameters used during the automation process. This will result in agencies being able to return the same values that are displayed within Cyberscope.
You mentioned the CDM automation process. Can you tell us a little bit about the FISMA automation process?
The reporting period for automated FISMA metrics is the last 42 days of the quarter. On the last day of the quarter, the metrics will be queried using the out-of-the-box visualizations within the federal dashboard. These visualizations are the same visualizations that are within the agency dashboard, and the calculations are the same. Any anomalies that were identified throughout the reporting period will be removed from the 42-day average, and the metrics will be recalculated. The final metrics will be shared with the CyberBalance team, which will be uploaded into your agency's FISMA questionnaire. A letter will be posted to your agency's FISMA profile explaining the days that were evaluated for the reporting period and any anomaly data points that were removed. The goal is that agencies should be able to reproduce the same values within their agency dashboard, utilizing the same parameters as the federal dashboard. An SOP is under development with specific instructions on how to replicate those metrics.
You mentioned anomalies and excluding days from the FISMA metric. Can you please demonstrate this?
Currently, the CDM PMO process is that all data input to FISMA metrics are evaluated for any large anomalies. These anomalies are then excluded from the final metric. An agency user will be notified within their agency Cyberscope portal of which days are excluded and what specific metric. As an agency user who would want to recreate excluding days and replicate what is done within Cyberscope for the final metric, here's how they would do so. You would scroll up to the top of the dashboard into the KQL search bar. From there, you would start to create a custom query that will exclude the specific day desired. You would start the query by you would start typing in trending timestamp. You would select equals and specifically the day desired to exclude. Starting here, you can say 2023-1130. To finalize this search and to exclude 1130 from the 42-day average, select Update. Scrolling down, you'll still see this last 42 days, but within the calculations, it'll be the last 42 days minus 1130. If you have multiple days that were excluded and would like to add an additional day, select the spacebar, select and then we'll recreate the exact query. We'll do not trending timestamp equals, and then the second day you'd like to exclude. we could also exclude 1129. 2023, 1129. Select Update. Now for the average metrics, it'll still be looking at the last 42 days, but be removing 1130 and 1129.
I can see how those outliers would adversely affect the accuracy of the FISMA score. What if an agency wanted to see how the visualization was generated?
For example, a user may want to understand what specific boundaries fall under FISMA metric 1.1.1. To do so, the user will select the menu option on the right-hand side of the visualization. From here, you will select the option Explore Data in Discover. This will load a separate page, taking the user to the Discover application. As you can see, the parameters from the specific FISMA metric are stored within this search to ensure that the only system boundaries that are returned are the same ones that were within the visualization you were exploring. Now that you're in Discover, there are several things you can do. First, a user can select what specific fields they would like to display here. So if you wanted to select System Boundary ID, you could search that and select the button here. And now I can see what specific system boundaries fell within the visualization. In addition, a user can open up a specific document and see all fields associated with the system boundary. Finally, for reporting purposes, a user can export these specific records with the rows and columns that are selected. So if I wanted to export all 27 system boundaries that fall within FISMA metric 1.1.1, I can select the Share button, CSV report, generate CSV, and that will save an Excel document that has all the system boundaries that you're looking at.
What about some of the specific FISMA metrics that are provided on the dashboard?
FISMA metric 1.2.4 through 1.2.7. This FISMA metric is an average GFE device count over the last 6 weeks, or 42 days as designated by this time picker. This visualization is based on HWAM trending. At the agency dashboard, the visualization is broken out by Tier 1 organization or an agency subcomponent. At the federal dashboard, the only numbers being evaluated and uploaded into Cyberscope is the summary row here, which represents the Tier 0 or overall asset count for an organization. Host category is what breaks down these various columns. For FISMA metric 1.2.4, it's evaluating host category endpoint and host category mobile. For 1.2.5, this is host category networking device. 1.2.6, this is host category other I/O device. And 1.2.7, this is evaluating any record that does not fall under one of these 4 specified host categories. This could be one of 2 things. The record could have an additional category that is not represented here, or the host could have a no device category associated with it whatsoever.
What other FISMA metrics are there?
FISMA metric 1.3, which represents a 6-week average of the number of devices that were last seen within the various time parameters. So last seen within 7 days, last seen within 8 to 14 days, last seen 15 to 30 days, last seen over 30 days, and these are the amount of records that do not have a host last seen age and cannot fall into one of these buckets. At the agency dashboard, these metrics are evaluated at a Tier 1 or subcomponent level, with these top 5 visualizations representing the Tier 0 or the overall agency average. At the federal dashboard and within Cyberscope, the only 3 numbers that are affixed to Cyberscope are the host last seen within 7 days, which is 1.3.1, host last seen within 8 to 14 days, 1.3.2, and the host last seen within last 15 to 30 days, which is 1.3.3. If when you're evaluating your records, these three numbers don't add up to 100, that indicates that some of your devices fall within host last seen over 30 days ago and host last seen missing discovery dates, which are visible both the agency and federal dashboard. To calculate these various columns, the first thing that's needed is the host last seen age. As mentioned before, this age is calculated upon ingest and looks at the difference between at timestamp, which is a fixed upon ingest on a record, and host last seen date, which is provided by the agency tool and sensor. Once we have a host last seen age, which is represented in the dashboard on each hardware record as a number of hours, the next calculation is to understand the percentage of each one of these columns. This calculation is derived by the percent of hosts with a last seen age in the various time parameters, so say last 7 days, divided by the total number of hosts within HWAM trending, unique host. And that will provide the percentage of hosts that fall under these various buckets.
Known exploited vulnerabilities, or KEVs, are becoming an important part of an agency's cyber hygiene.
FISMA metric 8.4, which is the average days to remediate KEVs, looking at the past 6 weeks or 42 days. Within the agency dashboard, this is evaluated and provided visualization on the tier 1 level or subcomponent. So each row here is representative of a different agency subcomponent. At the federal dashboard and reporting within Cyberscope, the only number that's evaluated is the overall agency mean time to remediate KEVs, which is represented in this left visualization and is inclusive of all of the records, not just one or several of these subcomponents. Mean time to remediate KEVs is based on the data view CDM vuln remediated. This data view is generated via a continuous transform. This continuous transform looks at both the vuln current and the vuln trending indexes. It pulls out all the unique remediated vulnerabilities that are present within both those indexes. Once we have the CDM vuln remediated data view, there's an additional filter added to the records in the calculation to only look at vulnerability finding KEV in catalog equals true. So only mean time to remediate records that are actually included in the calculation are those that are included within the KEV in catalog field equals true. For each vulnerability record, there's a mean time to remediate field that is affixed to that record. This is calculated upon ingest and looks at the time between the vulnerability finding remediated date and either the vulnerability finding first found date or the vulnerability finding KEV date added, whichever date there which is most recent. So for example, if an agency had a vulnerability on their network for 30 days, and on that 30th day, that vulnerability was added to the KEV in catalog, and it remained unremediated on the agency network for an additional 30 days, the mean time to remediate would be 30 days for that vulnerability, not the full 60. Mean time to remediate field is calculated in number of hours, so the overall value that is provided in the average is divided by 24 to return the metric in days. Within this visualization, you can see the total number of remediated KEVs that were being evaluated in this third column. And out of those, say 204 KEVs that are being evaluated, the average time to remediate those looking at the average mean time to remediate field.
What if the default 42 days or 6 weeks isn't the information an agency needs?
In this example, FISMetric 1.2.4 through 1.2.7, you can see the default time parameter is set for 42 days. This means these FISMetrics are based on a 42-day average. There are two use cases for wanting to modify this period of time. The first use case is a user logging in prior to the end of the FISMA reporting period. Say as a user you log in on day 30, 12 days prior to the end of the reporting period. You would want to scope this down instead of last 42 days and change this to last 30 days so that you're only looking at data that will actually be evaluated for the final metric. To do so, select the last 42 days button. From here, select the calendar icon. This will open up the quick select option. For this use case, select the 42 days and change that to 30 days. This can be changed to whatever time parameter that the user is interested in seeing. Select the Apply button. Now please note the endpoint mobile asset count is currently 5,099. As I select Update, the metric is recalculated and now says 5,098. The next example is if a user would like to select specific days instead of last 30 days, they can do so by opening up the calendar and selecting a start date and an end date. This is very useful if a user logs in after the reporting period ends and would like to roll back the metric, as long as it's within the 90-day retention period, to see exactly what CISA was viewing the day they ran the report. To do so, click back into the Customize Time Range option. Instead of selecting this icon, select the last 30 days. And then right now you're on relative for last 4 weeks. Select absolute. This will open up a calendar and you can go back months, forward. If I wanted to look at the period of time from October 1st, I would set that as a start date. I would select the now, go to absolute again, and say I wanted to end the period of time on October 9th. I'll roll that back to October 9th. Select this again. I will select the update button again. And now the metric has recalculated again. You can see the time parameter up here is now October 1st through October 9th. And the metric is recalculated to only look at the days specified here in the parameter. Finally, a user would want to return the time parameter to the default value of 42 days. You would select the current custom time panel, select the calendar again. With the quick select, select last, change 15 to 42, and instead of last 15 minutes, look at last 42 days. Select apply and update, and the metric will be returned back to the default value of last 42 days.
Thank you, Blair. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
If you would like to see any of our other instructional videos or online classes, go to cisa.gov/CDM-training to find our library. You can also contact us at cyberinsights@cisa.dhs.gov for more information. Thank you for watching.